Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, online, thisweekinamerica.us. The book From Beatons to Beach Haven is the remarkable story of Ghost, a 28-foot wooden catboat, the winner of 7 consecutive Bay Championships, featuring extraordinary craftsmanship. It's the gripping story of Ghost's initial disaster on the racecourse, a remarkable recovery, and then 22 years of continuous competition. The author is William Fortenbaugh, Professor Emeritus of Classics at Rutgers University and an avid sailor. Beginning at age 8, he raced many types of boats. The book is a collaborative effort. The builders at Beaton's, the crew of Ghost, photographers, and friends, all making contributions. From Beaton's to Beach Haven, author William Fortenbaugh is back with us on This Week in America. Bill, great to have you back with us on the program.
Well, good to be back with you.
There are so many aspects of from Beaton's to Beach Haven that we wanted to talk about. Wanted to have you back on the program. It's interesting. The book is available. We'll mention bookventure.com. It's available at Amazon. All 5-star reviews. And I know in reading one of the reviews, they talked about the book as being fast-paced and hardly ever dull. And I'm thinking, for an author of scholarly books, you write about Aristotle philosophy. Talk about that and the challenges you had, knowing this was a book that was going to the masses, and you really wanted to make this accessible for everybody.
Well, it's a good question. When I started the book, I forgot that my audience was at least not made up of Aristotelian scholars. And I filled it up at the beginning with detailed research and even footnotes. But somewheres along the line, I had a moment of clarity. You might say I had a moment of truth. And I realized that footnotes do not belong on this kind of book. A book about a sailboat telling its fascinating story. I got rid of all the footnotes, kept focused on my intended audience, and sailors and non-sailors alike. And if I succeeded, then I think I can say well and good.
Well, and you have succeeded. This is a book I would highly recommend for sailors and for non-sailors. I'm a non-sailor. Can't tell you when the last time was I was in a boat, and I really couldn't put the book down. Once I started reading it, Ghost really comes to life, comes off the pages, as does Belle and the crew and everything that went into telling this amazing story. The title of the book is From Beatons to Beach Haven, a subtitle, A Cat Ghost. What are you hoping to tell the potential reader?
Well, you're referring to the title.
Yes.
Which divides into 2 parts. Well, we say the main title and then the subtitle. The first part is really geographical. It locates the story on Bornegat Bay in New Jersey and points to a boatyard. That's Beaton's boatyard where the boat was built, and to a museum, the New Jersey Maritime Museum, which is in Beach Haven. The second part is, I think, the more interesting part because it's rather surprising. It announces that the main actor in the book is a sailboat, not a living human being, but a sailboat. And while recognizing that the people who built the boat, who built and sailed on Ghost, were not hiding them, nevertheless, I tried to keep subordinate these people to a remarkable craft. Ghost, the boat, was fast on the race course, and Ghost, the boat, was beautiful when seen with her dark green hull cutting through the waves, brown cedar water in New Jersey. And when Ghost tacked, or when Ghost jibed, in the book it's Ghost on the move. Indeed, and I'm very proud of this, indeed a reader in California whom I have never met wrote to me and said that toward the end of the book, he thought that Ghost would start speaking in the first person. Very proud of that.
Yeah, it's like, and I can agree with that. It's like Ghost was sort of taking on a soul of its own as it was going through the story, and you're rooting for Ghost like it's a team or a human being in some athletic competition. And in talking about that, you address in the book the rivalries. Sailboats race, there are people on board who want to beat each other. Talk about the impact that had on Ghost and impact on you.
Well, there's a lot of facets to this, and much of the book indeed is about rivalry. But let me just state at the very beginning that I chose not to ignore the human condition, and that always involves rivalry. And even in the discussing the building of the first in building ACATs, I included a letter from a naval architect. Now, you would have thought a naval architect was doing professional work without any interest in rivalry, but far from it. He advises his client to keep the plans of a new ACAT, keep them out of sight, and to do so that so that the enemy camp will not know what the new boat will look like. Now, that's rather remarkable for a naval architect to put in print, but it's true to human nature. And later in the development of Ghost and the years passing by, the owners of ACATs, and myself included, found themselves engaged in what became known as an arms race. I call this regrettable, not just because it's all too human, but it drove some of the competitors, and not a little myself, finally to resign from the competition because it cost too much. It was for the Rockefellers and other people who can just spend endlessly. But that's no reason to reject the book. I just wanted to make perfectly human that we were trying to be perfectly human and saying that we were competing competitors and nothing was too expensive to avoid.
It's one of the many layers that you'll find and enjoy and appreciate as you're reading the book From Beatons to Beach Haven, a cat ghost, and it's available at, of course, Amazon, at bookventure.com. You can link on directly and get information by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. The author is William W. Fortenbaugh, back with us on This Week in America. And I mentioned in the beginning the ghost initial disaster on the race course. This could have been devastating, and because of that and the success that came like the next week in winning that race, the book has been described as being inspirational. Talk about that aspect of Ghost.
Well, let me just say that I didn't start out to write an inspirational book, and I certainly didn't start out to write a wholesome book. But that's what happened, at least in part. I make it abundantly clear, both by word and by photograph, that the builders at Beaton were flawless in their work. They produced a winner. And the crew on Ghost was experienced and, most importantly, dedicated to maintenance. And when the first race was a disaster, the boat wasn't ready to be sailed. We foolishly decided to sail anyway. There was much too much wind to be out there. We sank and certainly didn't finish. We had to be towed in, rather humiliating. But the crew responded with determination. And the determination kept up. We won the next 7 races, won the Bay Championship, and then 7 consecutive Bay Champions on top of it. If that makes for wholesome reading and is inspirational, well, then all I can say is wonderful.
Yes, and the book does have that inspirational aspect, emphasizing the rewards of perfection, and you talked about that with the crew, you talked about that with the builders, but it does have a light side as well. Talk about the aspect of all work and no play makes Jack a pretty dull guy. You actually had a few laughs along the way, didn't you?
Oh, well, we had a lot of laughs along the way. In fact, that's important if you're going to dedicate your something and work hard on it. Yeah. The detailed account of Ghost is a good example of this because I think it's written in a very readable style,
yes.
And with the illustrations, it's not hard to follow. But nonetheless, describing the building of a boat can get a bit heavy. And in the middle of this, I included what was a true event called the Last Rivet Party. Now you ask immediately, what on earth is the Last Rivet Party? Well, The simple answer is many, many boats, both wood and steel, are held together by rivets, and at some time you come to the last rivet. It's rather like putting up a skyscraper.
Oh, yes.
At some point, the last rivet is peened or put in place, affixed, and the workmen stop and they enjoy a pause before enclosing the building. Well, the same is true of building a ship. And in the case of Ghost, we held a last rivet party to mark the end of framing, the ribs around which will support the hull. And we did it in true sailing style. We held the Sunday before Christmas a beer party in which we drank Rheingold, the beer of choice. And we sang the Rheingold song. My beer is Rheingold, the dry beer. Think of Rheingold whenever you buy, and so it goes on. And that song became our fight song. And we sang it not only on the race course, but after the races and at awards ceremonies back at the yacht clubs.
You know, it's interesting because you think of yacht clubs, sometimes people there not having a real keen sense of humor, and you're talking about a ceremony interrupted by a song about beer. Did Ghost get any complaints during this process?
I'm sad to say that it certainly did get complaints. Yacht club committee men, dress up in blue and white. They have dark blue jackets and white ducks on, and oftentimes they wear white bucks on their feet as well. No, it can be a very, very snooty event. And Ghost just ignored all of that and decided to have fun. And it went well for the first 6 years. No award ceremony was interrupted by a shouter or a complainer. But in the 7th year, a member of a competing yacht club decided to complain to the regatta committee. And personally, I was greatly surprised. The committee caved when they should have told the complainant to lighten up. Or, and this I didn't think about until later, or they might have pointed out that the Rheingold song actually elevated the award ceremony. For the Rheingold song, My Beer is Rhine, that song is sung to the tune of Emil Malteufel's The Student Waltz. And that classic tune dates back to 1883. That's a full 100 years before the Cat class was founded. I think that elevates.
Well, it certainly does. You were giving them a touch of the classics, and they didn't even realize that. We're talking with William Fortenbaugh, the author of the book From Beatons to Beach Haven. It's a fascinating story. Part one of the interview we did with Bill. If you go to the website thisweekinamerica.us, go to audio, you'll be able to go to iTunes, Podomatic, and listen to that interview. If you go to YouTube, you'll find the video there as well. The book has so many pictures and takes you through this whole process, this whole life of Ghost. Ghost was built at Beaton's boat yard on Upper Bornegat Bay, raced on the Upper Bay where she won 7 championships. The geography there plays an important part in the book as well. We know that she retired to the New Jersey Maritime Museum located in Beach Haven on Lower Barnegat Bay. Is there more to the Lower Bay?
Well, you're correct to ask the question. The Lower Bay really doesn't play a role until later in the book, but it's an integral role and it's well tied together. The simple answer is probably this. The Lower Bay provides a larger race course and on average stronger, steadier winds than the Upper Bay, where Ghost won its 7 Bay championships. Down on the Lower Bay, there is a wonderful yacht club called Little Egg Harbor. And every August, that club sponsors a major regatta, not only for New Jersey boats, but for New York and Maryland and the whole central East Coast. And Ghost, along with all the ACATs, were invited. And there were memorable races that probably will live longer with me than what we did on the Upper Bay. The book recounts two of the races in some detail, but there were many races that we lost, and the two that it records in some detail, of course, we won. But the point is that these were exciting races, raced over courses from 8 to 10 miles, and in the two races I'm thinking about, we won by 2 or 3 boat lengths. And I can only say that I hope the narrative makes clear the excitement of such close competition and does it in a succinct and vivid narrative.
It does, and vivid, I'm thinking as you're describing that, as I was reading the book, I can actually see you out there and the closeness of the competition and sort of urging Ghost and the crew on. We're talking about the book From Beatons to Beach Haven. Much more could be said. Perhaps it's sufficient to say that From Beatons to Beach Haven is well-written, multifaceted, didactic, historical, amusing, inspirational. Bill, you've done a nice job of presenting the story of Ghost, and again, so many layers to this. A minute or so left in the program. What was this experience like for you to go back and you lived the experience, but to go back and with the help of other people, chronicle what happened and put this whole story together for all of us to enjoy? How rewarding was that for you?
Oh, well, one has to be careful. The fact that we're writing about a winner is, of course, always satisfying.
Yes.
But what was most rewarding to me was the way that the crew stepped forward, and the builders and the crew stepped forward to write this book. In the introduction, I make clear that the book doesn't carry my name as the author. It's true that I wrote the English, or I should say edited the English, but much of the book comes from the people down at Beaton's Boatyard who are able to tell me what to call this and what to call that, and for goodness sakes, that's not quite right. And then, of course, the crew sailing the boat, well, they had many experiences, and one chapter in the book, which I haven't shared with you on this phone call, was tipping over. And there's some wonderful pictures, well, 1 or 2 pictures, of the boat going over. And this is so easy to do with a boat that's 28 feet long and has a 47-foot mast up in the air. The pressures are tremendous. And when somebody on the boat makes the wrong move at the wrong time in a heavy air, it goes over and it sinks. Not to the bottom, it floats, but it's a 2-hour job to recover the boat, to get the water out, and so on. So I'm grateful for all these people who contributed to the book and sailed with me.
It makes a remarkable story, like I say, on Amazon, all 5-star reviews. From Beatons to Beach Haven, the author is William W. Fortenbaugh. That's Fortenbaugh. You'll find the book at AmazonBookVenture.com, and you can link on directly to book information by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Bill, a pleasure having you back on the program. Thank you so much for being back with us and sharing the remarkable story of Ghost.
Well, thank you for giving me the chance to talk about it.
You're welcome. You're listening to This Week in America. Back after these messages.